Councilmember Gordon chairs the comparable committee on the Assembly side. Ordinarily, we would, particularly on a project of this magnitude, we'd have a request from the administration in the first week of January, as I mentioned. Best case, it now sounds like we're going to see formal action saying this is our plan from the authority in early April, which, as I mentioned earlier, gives us 8 weeks to sort of sort through what is a new plan. And Mr. Richard, I'm going to push you a little bit deliberately here, and please bear with me. On the one hand, on the other hand, you know, I think you've tried to assuage our concerns and those of many of the folks up and down the state by saying we have a new plan for you. On the other hand, I'm a little worried you're going to show up and say, well, we're really building on the old plan, so it shouldn't take you much longer than 8 weeks. And I don't think you can have that argument both ways. So could you discuss briefly before we take a break the timing issues here, because this is, you know, this is a $6.2 billion expenditure, $2.7 billion from the state, leading to what is currently estimated to be $98.5 billion. That's not the kind of thing I think any of us want to be rushed on in terms of the public good. So can you comment on that before we take a break?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I think of those two choices, basically what we're saying is that the revised business plan, and we've used that term advisedly, the revised business plan that's going to come to you should be specifically related to changes that we've made in response to public and legislative concerns about our draft business plan. And so in that sense, it should be something that is based on what has already been out there and subject to pretty extensive public review. And I'm pleased to say, I think at the authority, with the legislative permission, we have taken the time to make sure that we're hearing from the public. We've reviewed all of those comments, and we've certainly listened to LAO, to the peer review group, and to you and your colleagues in the legislature. Our hope will be that our current sense of timing, Mr. Chairman, is that sometime in the required period when we have to give notice before our April 5th meeting, probably right around the last week of March, we would essentially unveil where this is going, what will be in front of our colleagues on April 5th. I believe that more or less in that time period, the administration will make its formal request to the legislature for the funding. And so that's the timing I anticipate. We will do everything that we can to facilitate legislative and public review of that document. We will put a redlined version of it up on our website so that people can immediately see the changes from the draft business plan. We will meet with ledge analysts, with the peer review group, with all of the bodies that are advisory to you, and we'll do everything we can to facilitate it. I can only tell you that it would be our hope that we get this done in this budget cycle. But at that point, it will be in your hands and the hands of your colleagues. We'll do everything we can to try to make that as clear a document as possible, and work to diligently and quickly answer questions that come up.
Well, a very wise mentor of mine once told me that if you're riding a dead horse, it's time to dismount. But at the risk of riding it just a little bit farther, I want to ask you all to be thinking about some flexibility in this area, because if you force us to make a take it or leave it decision on a $98.5 billion path, you may not get the answer you like.
Well, can I just say, Mr. Chairman, with all respect, we don't have any notion that we're going to ask you to make a decision on a $98 billion project. I will tell you that one of the features of our draft business plan, which unfortunately kind of came into play after the initial construction segment, was we said very clearly that what we want, and now what we're trying to get with this revised plan, is that each piece of this project can stand on its own. And we said that if we go forward in the right way, three things should be true about each funding decision. A, that we would have all the money in hand for that phase. B, that it would have independent utility. And C, that it would meet the requirements of Proposition 1A.
Mr. Richard, forgive the interruption, but you heard Mr. Kempton say earlier, once we start down the path, we are making some commitments that take us a very long way out into the future at very great expense. And even if we scale it back to just the proposal before us, we're talking about $6.2 billion. We're talking about 100% of the federal funding that's available and a quarter of the bond funding that the state voters have approved. That is not a set of decisions that should be hurried when we don't yet know, after 3¼ years, what the plan of the High-Speed Rail Authority is. So I am encouraging you all, in the strongest possible terms, to think about ways in which we can ensure that both the legislature, but also, as I said earlier, the public, has the opportunity to thoroughly vet whatever it is you deliver at the end of March, beginning of April. And on that, I'm going to thank you both, gentlemen, for being here this evening.
Thank you,
Appreciate your
Senator.
willingness